Hi guys, and welcome to tonight's Champion Bets webinar, where we are previewing this season's NRL package with our analyst Steve Green. Steve, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Steve, you've been with us 3 seasons now, $8,800 profit over those last 3 seasons. You do every NRL game, State of Origin, Internationals, Futures. The bets come with stake amount, bookie, and the price, and it comes with regular weeknight updates, followed by updates throughout the round on match days. You do previews for every game, and this year you've included 2 or 3 second half bets, mate.
Yeah, halftime betting is something that I did a bit in 2018 personally, just to kind of test how my model was working on the run. Anyone that's tried to bet on the run knows how hard it is during the game because of the way in which you're going to call up and rather than doing it online. But I have found at half time you get a bit more stability. You're able to get a bit of a bigger bet on. And in that first 5 minutes of the half-time period, I find that the prices are sometimes out of whack and you can really kind of bang it into place pretty quickly. So I wanted to make sure that that option was there for the members this year. And at the moment, it's something I'll just do a few times. But obviously, if there's value on each half time, it could be something we ramp up. So I'll definitely tell all members, regardless whether there's a bet or not, because I don't want you sitting there waiting for an email that may never come. But yeah, that's something to look forward to this year.
And if you're listening in now or viewing the webinar on YouTube in the coming days, we currently have our early bird offer for people that want to get on board. That will not be around for much longer. It's $5.97 for the season. I've already reiterated what you get for that. It's a fantastic package and highly profitable. And guys, if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please just fire them through and we'll endeavour to answer them as we move along. Steve, I'm going to hand over to you, mate.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for joining the webinar. The first slide is just a really high-level bit about myself. People that have been members for a while, I've heard this spiel before, so apologies. But yeah, like Daniel said, it's now my 4th season of Champion Bets as an NRL analyst. I've played rugby league since I was a little kid. I stopped when I was 18. I was playing at Erindale College in the Talent and Sports program, which is pretty good nursery for rugby league players. John Monahan, Brett Finch, Michael Robertson were in my kind of cohort. Know those fellas, and yeah, kind of realised after my knee reconstruction and a bit of reality facing that I wasn't going to make the big time, and so I was kind of academically inclined, so I focused on that. But when I was at uni, I got a job at a sports bookmaker called Cambet. It was an American-focused bookie. They really opened up my eyes to the importance of statistics and also just to the world of professional betting. Sharpies working there. And then when they moved overseas, they relocated to Spain. I went and worked for Australian bookmaker Sports Acumen, which later became Sports Alive, which had a strong rugby league focus, and get some really informed guys there and kind of learned what I could from them. And then I took my own approach, which was adopted from Cambet, which was statistics, to really kind of generate a bit more analysis than I think was being done at the time. And then, that was in 2004. Here we are 15 years later. I've learned lots of things. Haven't won every year, but I've gradually become more profitable, and as Champion Bets, I've been able to nut out a profit every year. So that's just a little bit about how I got here. In terms of my actual system, as I've said, it started with a player rating system where I thought knowing how good every player was, not just the stars, but knowing how good the weaker players are is actually just as important.
Steve, can I just cut in there for a second? Sorry, I'll just have to get you to turn that volume up again for us, please, mate. We are live, getting these questions in, doing it on the fly.
Okay. Can everyone hear that?
Yeah, that's a lot better, mate.
Okay, I'll talk loud and talk right into my mic. So, so I've used some kind of Excel multiple regression analysis, which basically measures how much each factor affects, each kind of variable affects the outcome, but also how those variables interrelate with each other. So over the seasons, I've been able to pull back and put in statistics to really improve the analysis. I update my ratings every round so that I think, very quick to pick up on new players and players that maybe are playing with an injury. In recent years, I've really focused on team statistics as a bit of an additional layer of analysis. I always had that as part of my model, but it's become a lot more important, in particular defence, because defence is a team effort and it should be best measured at a team level. I think the Roosters winning the comp last year showed that if you can defend your line the way they do, the way they did, then you're going to be very hard to beat. So, and once again, updated weekly. So I put a lot of effort in each week to making sure that I've got the most recent data in my model, and that helps me kind of spot those form trends that really happen in rugby league where teams lose or win 3 or 4 in a row. So trying to get onto them a little bit early and get some value there. What I've done here is just put up the 2018 NRL ladder at the halfway mark and the 2018 ladder at the end of the regular season. Now, members who signed up last year know that my big tip was about the Dragons. I had the Dragons to be making the top 4, winning the comp, winning the minor premiership and leading at the halfway mark. I won't go over the old ground about what happened with that halfway mark bet. As you can see, that in my opinion, they're tied there with the Panthers, even though Panthers are the number 1 position, all the metrics, the points differential and the points are the same. But what I really wanted to emphasise was just how much the halfway mark ladder looks different to the full season mark. You see the Roosters and the Storm, how they rocketed up the ladder. And how Panthers and Dragons dropped down. So the reason this is important is because something I look at, which I think is overlooked by most analysts, is just how much the officiating and the way the game is being policed can really affect the outcome. So I call it a season of 2 halves, which is a twist on the rugby league cliche, which is a game of 2 halves. That basically in the first half of the season there was this crackdown on dirty play, spoiling tactics, getting up on the line too fast, giving away tactical penalties in your red zone to slow the attacking momentum. The referees had enough of that, and you can see the figures there compared to 2017. The inside 10-metre penalties increased by 111% in 2018, so nearly twice as many. And the slow peel-off, so that's slowing down the attack in the ruck, also had a pretty big bump. I think that would have even been more, I definitely know that was more pronounced in the first half of the season because that's when the referee flips occurred. So we were getting some unbelievable numbers with penalties. Now, I think it was the right thing to do. I think that the NRL had to crack down on the tactics because they were really ruining the spectacle and giving teams that broke the law systematically an unfair advantage. So I was all for it. Anyone that followed me knew that I called that this trend was happening because the NRL announced that it was happening, and that I positioned ourselves to benefit from it by backing teams that I think had attacking superiority, so that basically the officiating was leaning towards benefiting attack at the expense of defence, and so we capitalised accordingly. Then it became murmurs from the CEO, Greenberg, that it's gone too far, and fans were complaining about the number of penalties. And you could really see within a space of a few weeks around the mid-season mark how much things had changed. And I was a bit slow to really accept that reality because it didn't come in the form of a formal edict. It was kind of a few comments here and there, and gradually we saw it go back to what I'd say the 2017 way of refereeing, which was allowing strategic penalties, allowing wrestle, and this team like the Storms and the Roosters who have that aspect of their game mastered were able to ramp up the ladder and kind of come home with a wet sail. And, that's where we took a bit of a hit to our profits, was not kind of adapting quick enough, or I didn't adapt as quick as I should have and realised that this was actually a new trend rather than just an aberration. I think that's what I thought, was that they let it slip, but no, they kept going. So I think...
Steve, you're there.
Yep.
I think it's the sign of a fantastic analyst that actually can pinpoint that, because there was a definitive time, wasn't there, at the stage of last season where that edict changed, and there was a definitive dip in the NRL tips, and it's a great compliment to you to know that that purely was a rules-based scenario as to why that happened.
Yeah, I try, and anyone that's been a member knows that I try and reflect on losing bets and winning bets. I think it's important to own your mistakes and to improve. In my earlier days, I'd probably blame referee decisions and bad luck, and then I start maturing and reading, and you realise that people that do that are losers for a reason, and you've got to kind of be honest with yourself. So I think that there is value in going back and looking at that, and like I said, identifying where I was, where I kind of could maybe pick up on things for 2019. So I do this at the end of a season. I go back and look at what bets I lost and try and work out if there's a common theme there. And there certainly was. The common theme was that I was downplaying the importance of good defence and how much that had really became a determinative factor. And like I said, if you look at betting against the Roosters and the Storm cost us a bit there, and it's something that I'll be keeping a very close eye on 2019. So in terms of 20, and so once again looking forward, I think that there is a realisation at NRL HQ that kind of what I'm saying is true here, that the end of the second half of the season was actually quite was ruined by. Well, it wasn't the greatest spectacle, to be honest. I mean, the grand final was a snooze fest, in my opinion, between the Storm and Roosters. The NRL have come out now and said that there's some statistics that back this up, that they really, 2018 was a year with the most amount of what they call dead time. So that's when the ball is actually not in play. It's kind of, there's a stoppage of some kind, whether it's a scrum, a penalty, a player dawdling off after being sinned in. I mean, there was some ludicrous tactics being employed to slow down time. The NRL has said that they want to end that, and they've announced some changes which are going to speed up the game. So, I don't know too many people that are really looking at this in as much detail as I think needs to be done. So you've got to look at, well, which teams will benefit, which teams have got slimmed down forward packs and are going to be agile, which teams have traditionally polled on the points and maybe benefit from a liberal interpretation of ruck speed, and make sure that you can get up fast and benefit. And the counter is which teams are going to get the whistle, the P blown out of the whistle because of penalties. So whilst I've learnt from my mistake in 2018, I actually think 2019 could be a repeat of what happened in the first half of 2018. If that's the case, I want us to be capitalising on it, making hay very early on before everyone else adapts. So that's just something I wanted to start with, because one, I think it's important for if you're a punter in the NRL to kind of look at these things, but also just to try and give it insight into how I maybe go a bit deeper than maybe other analysts who just kind of point out how great this player is or how good that player is. I think the more work you put into these things, the more value, the more edge you're going to get. So I put a lot of work in. One thing that I've kind of done that I outlined over the years, I've just skipped the page. If you've noticed it, ahead of you are three tables. The one on the left measures possession. This is from 2018. The one in the middle measures errors, and the one on the right measures the completion rate. Now, if you listen to the Channel 9 commentary team and your pundits, they'll tell you that possession and completions are everything. But if you look at that, so the graph on the left, possession, the reason why it doesn't add up to 100 in terms of the teams that are all below 50 is because there's a lot of dead time, like I was saying earlier, when no one's in possession. If you look at the teams that really had great possession, you've got Cowboys, you've got Seagulls, you've got Titans and Bulldogs all in the top 8. Well, none of those teams came within a QE of finals footy this year. So, and if you flip it, if you look down the bottom, you've got Roosters at 12. You've got the Storm at 10th. So the two teams that won it weren't even in the top 8 for possession. So this idea that all you need to do is hold the ball and you'll win games. And whilst this is over a season, and I take that point that it doesn't go into individual games and looks at what the possession flow, it does still show that over the course of a season, you can hold on to the ball all you want, but if you're not doing other things that matter, you're going to struggle. Errors I found even more interesting, but I'll explain why. So Roosters led the error count. So, sorry, I was there. So they led the error count with 10.6 per game. They went on to win the competition. The Storm are at third at 10.3. They went on to play in the grand final. Sharks 9.8. They were Rabbitohs were the other two finals. So if you were reading that, you'd actually say that teams that make errors go well, which is kind of counterintuitive because an error is a mistake. But I've learned a long time ago that not all errors are created equal. So to give you an example, somebody jumps up to catch a flying ball, crossfield kick, and make an amazing attempt to even get their hands to it, but they drop it. That's an error. Where somebody who gets a pass right onto their chest, no excuse, but they drop it, that's also an error. So looking purely at errors as if they're kind of a generic statistic is likely to mislead. So, and similarly, an error on the first tackle when you're in the attacking team and you're attacking, that's a really costly error. An error where it's on your last tackle and you just put the kick in properly or something like that. Yes, it's still costly, but it's nowhere near as costly. So teams make errors at bad or at good times. So just looking at errors is going to mislead people, which is this is great because I'm happy because I know that people don't look into some detail. And once again, set completions. The first thing I'd observe is just how bunched up they are. So the highest is 79.5%, the lowest is 75.8%. So in terms of the spectrum of outcomes there's very little separating the best and the worst. And once again, the teams with best completions, Dogs, West, Eels, Knights, Raiders, none of those teams made the top 8. So completing your sets and holding on to possession, it may have been worked in seasons past, but whatever's happened with team strategy and whatever's changed in the game, they're no longer the variables which you should be obsessing over. The ones that I think are quite important, this is just a snapshot. There's a lot of analysis behind my model, but this is just to kind of give you some common misconceptions. Missed tackles, that's pretty obvious. That's important, but it's really important because what it actually measures is it can act as a proxy for defence more generally. So yes, missed tackles measures how many tackles are missed by the West Tigers. But when a team misses tackles, they're also likely to be ineffective, making ineffective tackles, not moving up fast. It actually reflects poor defence in general. So when a team accumulates lots of missed tackles, it usually does show that they've let in a lot of points. There are some caveats on that. So West Tigers actually had not bad defence because they had really good scrambling defence. So there's other things that you can do, other stats lists where multiple regressions become relevant. You should look at the combination of stats. So whether a team that has missed tackles and ineffective tackles, how bad those combinations are. So missed tackles is one which is important. You can see down the bottom, Roosters and Storm, 2 grand finalists were 2 of the teams that released tackles. So that all kind of makes sense. Tackle breaks is also just rugby league's a simple game. It's about not missing tackles and it's about busting tackles. So let's simplify things. Teams that are busting tackles show you that they've got a strong running game. So the Dragons there, my team that let us down so much last year in the end, but they busted so many tackles because of that forward pack of theirs that just rampaged through. The Roosters and Storm are about middle ground, but then the Broncos, Rabbitohs, Panthers, all top 8 teams all top. And as you see at the bottom, teams like Bulldogs, West and Titans, Cowboys and Eels, all towards the bottom, all struggling to break tackles. Just shows that they're not getting go forward. Their forwards aren't busting through the line, and it's a proxy for how well the attack is going forward in general. And related to that is all run meters. So you break tackles and you make meters. That's what you want to do when you're getting up the field. Once again, Rabbitohs, Roosters, 2 of the best teams last year. Dragons were right up there, Sharks. The Storm's probably the outlier there because they are towards the bottom, but that's probably more to do with their style of play. But in general, just to give you a bit of an overview, that I think everyone would, those 6 variables that I've just run through in the last 2 slides, people would say that they're probably all equally important, and they would start off building a model based on that premise, where I don't think that's correct. And it also changes year to year. That flows from my other point about the style of game. So if you've got a free-flowing style of game being refereed, then line breaks and run meters and tackle breaks become a lot more important. Where if you have a kind of slow, gritty style of officiating, then missed tackles become very important. So it also has to be something that's tweaked regularly. I'll just pause there in case there's any comments, but otherwise I'll get on to some more kind of concrete analysis for 2019. I'll keep going. So I mean, the 6 new coaches is something which I've never seen before in terms of just the pure turnover of coaches. I think in the podcast I did last week or 2 weeks ago, I actually missed, I just didn't mention the fact that Hasler is the new coach of Manly and John Morris is the new coach of Sharks. So there's actually 6 new coaches. I was just talking about the 4 coaches on the merry-go-round, but there's actually been, Sharks coach has been deregistered from the NRL and may never coach again for repeated breaches of the rules. Flanagan, who's been a very successful coach, won the first premiership in history a couple of years ago. So Morris has never coached the first grade team before, so that's a big change. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of discipline he instills in that club, which has a history of maybe being a bit wayward without a strong coach. And Hasler coming back to Manly would have been 100 to 1 to ever coach at Manly again after some of the anger that was directed at him when he left. But he's back at his home, and seeing how the players respond to him will also be interesting. Bennett, Seabold, McGuire, and Cleary. Those 4 coaches would have to be, with the exclusion of Craig Bellamy, probably the biggest coaches in the NRL. So in terms of highest paid and highest profile. So there's some really big names changing clubs. So there's lots of uncertainty as to how that will play out early in the season. And I like that because that's volatility and that's something we can capitalise on if we adapt quicker than the market. So 6 new coaches is something to look out for. I've run through key players to watch now. You might look at some of those names and say, oh, geez, there's much bigger names moving clubs this year. Why have you chosen them? The reason I've chosen them is because I actually think they're really good acquisitions because of what hole they fill for each club and what they can bring to the club. So the Raiders have had a lot of success with Englishmen. Whitehead and Hodgson have come over and become 2 of the best players in the NRL. Ricky Stewart should deserve a lot of credit for that kind of strategy because I think people were miffed as to why he was rating the Super League talent. But this guy that he's brought across, John Bateman, is potentially the best out of all 3. He's an absolute gun, and I think he's going to make a mark in the NRL and add a real level of competitiveness that the Raiders have probably missed. The Bulldogs have signed 2 young guns from the Knights, Jack Cogger and Nick Leaney, who really will complement that team. And Dean Hay should also get credit for working on such a shoestring budget and recruiting people. Sean Johnson for the Sharks is probably the biggest name to move clubs this year. Really adds a lot of star power to a team that has always had a gun forward pack, but probably needed just that one gun killer back to take them to a grand final again. So I think he's a big acquisition. Titans with Tyrone Peachey and Riley Jackson signed 2 quality players that are really going to bolster their back line and their back row. I think buyer of the year could prove to be David Clemmer for the Knights. If you look at the Knights last year, the thing they lacked more than anything was go forward and particularly their forward pack. And they bought the biggest meter eater in the game in Clemmer. And Ramian's a gun outside back that will provide some strike power, much needed strike power for Kalen Ponga to work with. The Eels, I've included all 3 of their big recruits because I think they're all very good. But in particular, Blake Ferguson and Sean Lane. Ferguson will fill the hole, or try to fill the hole that Semi Radradra left all those years ago for a big meter-making winger that can finish a try. And Sean Lane's just a really underrated back rower, in my opinion, and he'll really make a mark there at the Eels and looked good at control on the weekend. The Dragons have signed Corey Norman, massive coup. He'll probably play fullback, which really opens up their back line and gives them some more star quality. The Roosters, the Premiers, Angus Crichton and Brett Morris, 2 very good players, and filling in for the players that they've lost over the off-season. They're big signings. And West Tigers have signed 2 Roosters, Monarowski and Madison. big raps on both those players, and I think they'll make the starting team and fill a very important role. So,
and Steve,
obviously
Steve, for us Mexicans, who should we be looking out for in the Storm?
For the Storm, you actually haven't acquired any big name players this year, mainly because you've just got such a good squad. Melbourne, the Storm have such a good squad that they have a lot of talent coming through that they're going to promote, give a go to. So while there's no one that they've signed that you should keep an eye on, I think with Billy Slater retiring, really does open up the door for Jerome Hughes to make his spot, and I think he'll, with a lot more games, he'll be one to watch. And Cameron Smith's career must be coming to an end sometime soon. And his understudy, who's called Brendan Smith, not related, he'll get a bit more games this year too. So I think those two guys, who just shows the amazing depth that Melbourne have had, that they haven't been able to crack the starting team. So look out for them to get more games. So that's for the Storm. I think. Sorry, I've gone to the page. I think that may have been it in terms of running down players. Just in terms of, I just wanted to give an overview of how I think the market looks in terms of where, I won't give any specific tips out because that is for the members. But just in terms of, I do think the NRL is a very even competition. And so teams that I think have been maybe rated as no chance this year because of how they played last year could surprise on the upside. I'm talking mainly there about Eels and West, who I think are tipped by many to get wooden spoon. I actually think Eels in particular, I actually think they'll be very competitive this year and could do anything. I think Corey Norman and Jared Hayne were very disruptive forces within that club for various reasons, and I think getting rid of them and, like I said, recruiting some really talented players, and they've also got a really good junior nursery there in West Sydney. I'm looking for resurgent Eels. I'm looking for West to really build on what they did last year and maybe go a little bit better without some of the injuries they suffered last year. And I think Newcastle, as I said earlier, have made some good acquisitions and with a very well coached. So I'll be thinking about how to play that and which teams out of those deserve a formal bet. I also think the Raiders could bounce back after a really lousy year or two. I think there's some good signs there about their squad coming together. In terms of teams that I think may be overrated, I think the Warriors losing Sean Johnson's a big loss, particularly considering they've lost Mason Lino, who would have been a natural replacement. And I think the Cowboys have suffered a bit of a horror pre-season with Ben Barber being sacked. And I just think that whilst they've got a killer forward pack, their outside backs and their depth looking a bit weak. I think early on in the year we're going to be backing some underdogs. The $2.50, $3 kind of shots, and plus 4, plus 6.5. I think there's some real value early in the season there where the bookies are putting up those kind of odds for games that I think are too hard to pick. So you'll see me going there. But yeah, I think that provides a high level overview of how I operate, what I kind of think happened last year, what I think could happen this year, and just a few insights into what my model suggested.
Steve, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Okay.
Guys, like I said at the top of the webinar, we've currently got our early bird season special, $5.97. It's not going to be around for long, so if you are interested, please give us a bell, 1300 500 057, or alternatively email us team@championbets.com.au. This package, again, has made over $8,800 over the last 3 seasons. It's a profit-making machine, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks, everyone.